What's wrong?
Because we just went, it just took us straight to live, so they've made some different changes to it. What's going on, everybody? Everybody, I'm going to play our intro only because it kind of sets the tone. So let me get this going. Are we back?
Yeah, we
I
back.
think so.
Yeah, we back.
We're working it out. Everything just reset. And normally I'm here around 15 to 20 minutes early, just messing around with this thing. And of course, the day that I'm not 15 to 20 minutes early, uh, it gives us all kinds of surprises. They're updating. So, man, StreamYard's changed. We've changed. We're here. It's Community Beacon. It is Friday, the end of May. I heard I wasn't supposed to timestamp stuff, but I'm doing it anyways, or date, put the date in there, but we'll be okay because we're consistent. So, God willing, we'll have another episode as as long as we're
As
here,
often
so to
as God
speak.
is willing.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. There you go. Guys, I am Michael Sevilla, real estate guy here and there in northern Palm Beach County. That has to be the longest applause ever, but I appreciate it. I
I'm
don't
a
even know how
boy.
you did that.
I'm a
It,
boy. Ah.
I appreciate. Listen, I appreciate it. And of course, on the other side of the screen, we have the incomparable. Has a new green screen. You see him up there speaking, the motivational speaker, inspirational speaker, the keynote speaker, the Joel Simmons of the Tenacity Foundation. Let's get that applause going. Someone cut us off right there. Someone cut us off right there. And I'm gonna tell you what, sucks for you. Eh, That that gets rid of all the people who don't want the gyms, right? Like when they give you these intros and everybody just walked out the back door, and that's fine. We got about however many people need to be here, are here, and I definitely appreciate that, guys. We will jump right into it. This entire month, we have been talking about identity. It's been some very fruitful and productive conversations where we were able to put together some frameworks. We were able to make certain distinctions. And we'll go over a couple of them. I think there were some things that were definitely worth noting, but I I just think what we're doing here is very special and just the way we're putting this thing together. And what's interesting is that I get phone calls of people who are talking about this stuff, possibly haven't seen the show. I almost feel like they have because I'm just like, we just spoke about that. And we have conversations surrounding it. And if you're tuned in and you've been tuned in for a while and you watch us consistently over and over again, and you're getting this information, and hopefully you're also utilizing this information so that, therefore gathering some wisdom with it, some experience and wisdom with it. Um, okay. Yeah, you getting some wisdom with it that you're taking this stuff, you're growing. I know the brother and I are growing. Did happen to run into the brother, what was it, yesterday?
Oh
Yesterday at the
man,
gym.
yeah, at the gym. I creeped up on him, y'all. He was just walking, minding his own business, and I reached out and I grabbed him right in the
Yeah.
arm. Hey, take it easy now. We're in the gym. This is a safe spot, safe place right here.
Yeah, I'm telling I get in there and I'll hit the cardio. And when I'm in the cardio, I'm just priming. Like I'm priming this workout. Like I'm really starting to get focused on what it is that I want to that I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. I start visualizing from the step master, from the stairmaster, or sometimes the treadmill, whatever it is. And then when it's done, okay, boom, I'm looking for the machine I need to get to, and that's the only thing that's on my mind. And of course, the brother reached out and grabbed me. I'm like, man, who is grabbing me? Who is grabbing me like that? What?
Uh,
Yeah, I almost ripped my
I,
arm
I
off.
made him put a little something behind it, just a little tiny bit, just little antagonistic kind of Greg, just a little bit.
Like I got him. I caught him. And so yeah, for those of you, some of you all need to be aware of your surroundings. Like that. That's partially it. I definitely wasn't. I was so hyper focused on what I came in there to do, but we got a nice little workout in, and we
Yeah,
ended it when we needed to end it. End it.
yeah,
For sure, for sure. Got a nice workout in mentally. For me, mentally, spiritually, and physically. It was all in that. I think we were in there for about an hour and a half or so. So that was always good to see the brother from time to time. Because it wasn't planned. All right. Anything new before we get into this identity again? The recap of it.
yeah. No, that's it, man. Just a couple of little words. Welcome back to the show. Glad to be here. I'm pumped up. Because of this recap. We had three powerful episodes: identity, influence, presence, power, season, surrender. And I think that what we did was these things just like hit the core of what it means to live with focus. So I think that there's going to be a lot of conversation about focus today. Showing up authentically, trusting God's plan. We covered that. That was a big thing. Walking in his purpose. All right, so we're diving into this thing, and it's all about that focus, intention, how you respond, resiliency, empowerment. And I really feel like today we're going to hear some stuff about focus and breaking it down with some key takeaways from each one of these episodes. So I'm excited about this. I'm ready to get into it. What's up, bro? Where we go?
Man, I love it. Oh, it was actually 4 episodes. I'm looking
Oh
at them.
man, did I
Yeah,
miss one?
yeah. We had oh, that was habits, right? Environment. Okay, you're right. 3 episodes. Okay, so we're rocking. So the first one was identity and influence. I think we just jumped into it. Um,
Hmm.
some of the concepts that we came out, the core concepts that came out of that was the identity being based on biology, your environment, your culture. Um, you know, that's when we got the question about imposter syndrome that popped up, right? Remember, we had
Hmm.
the guy who could jumped on here, and so we jumped into the imposter syndrome. Um, I'm just looking at going over some of the notes. You don't find identity, you choose it. Okay, so that let me go there with that one. Let me go there with that, because that one was just like, to me, it was so foundational, brother, because you made the distinction between choices and decision, making a decision, right? Like choosing and making a decision, and understanding that to decide, meaning to kill off all your other options. What resonated so powerfully with me was I didn't make that. I love that you brought that distinction up, because 12 weeks prior, I'm on my actually 13th week of my lifestyle adjustment, whether, in regards to the
Hmm.
gym, so on and so forth, where I was just like, I'm going to master this thing. I've been going to the gym for years, and I've had different moments of spurts and times when I was just, we all get focused and we get in, and then it, kind of lags off for whatever reason. Then you get back on, you get back in, you get back on. And so about 12 to 13 weeks ago, I said, boom, I'm really gonna 13 weeks actually. I can give you the exact date. I'm really gonna focus in on my health. And not just focus in on my health, but I want to master it in all phases. I want to understand why this muscle is doing this. I want to understand how longevity works. I want to understand this. Some people call it the sugars, but a lot of people are having uh blood sugar issues, you know what I mean? But diabetes, type 1, 2, 3, 4, pre-diabetes. Like, what exactly is that all about? Because we hear these words all the time, especially in our culture, and how do things contribute? So I said, you know what? I'm going. Not only am I going to learn about these different things, hormones. Not only am I going to learn about these different things, I'm going to experience this stuff, and I'm making a decision. Right back then, I could have called it a choice or a decision, but after we made the distinction, I'm making a decision. I am deciding now that I'm killing off all of the options. What does that mean? I'm glad you asked. It
Hmm.
mean it mean it means people are offering me certain things. I'm not eating it. Not, and I, like I said, I've done it before, but now it was this conscious decision of not, regardless of what the environment is, and I had some awesome experience, past 12 weeks. I've had events come up. A couple weeks ago, I went to my mentor's his 88th birthday. So
Hmm.
there's always any and everything you can have there is held at Gillespie's almost every other year. So or every year. So just going in there now, you're not gonna have this, Mike. You're not gonna have this cake.
Hmm.
You're not gonna have this, and being fully aware of it. Now, what did this decision allow me to do? Right, it allowed me not to have any guilt because it didn't matter to me. It didn't matter about the environment. It didn't matter. And when we say environment, we're talking about people, places, and things. The people, places, and things that didn't matter to me culturally. My father's here, so he's cooking up a storm like only he can cook up a storm. All the delicacies. I did have the goat head soup. I'm gonna say this because just a real quick thought. I did the vegetarian thing slash pescatarian thing while my mother was here. And one of the things that I regret the most, if I had to regret anything, was turning down some oxtail, a couple of times because I was on my vegetarian kick, right? Like that's the only thing that I regret about that experience. But I digress. The point of the matter was I had to understand these things, and I needed to understand it because once you understand the game, this nutritional game for me, this is my thought process, then I can start to manipulate it. I can
Hmm.
start to see what's really being taught. This goes back into the identity because one of the questions we asked ourselves was like, where do we get this stuff from? Right? Like, where do we get this information from in regards to the cold? One of the coldest things you understand is cereal and bananas. Right? People are, if I'm feeling a certain kind of way, the bananas has potassium. The banana only holds, I think it's like 1 or 200 mg's of potassium. So you would have to eat almost like 12, I think it's like 10 to 14 medium sized bananas in order to get the amount of potassium that your body needs. But it doesn't make sense if you're counting in all the sugar you're going to get from the bananas, the
Hmm.
carbs you're going to get from, like, there's all these things. But I said I'm gonna figure it out, and I said by the time I'm done, I'm going to be able to train the trainer. It's not about calories in, it's not about calories out, and really it was about me. So I have this information. I'm making this health a part of my identity. This way I'll be 75, 80 years old, and maybe I'm not moving around like I should be moving around. You know what I mean? This is going to help prevent that. I spoke about longevity. However, I'll still be able to give the information, right? I think a lot of especially when we talk about manhood, we talk about provision, providing the providing the accurate information, right, to the
Hmm.
people when they need it, as opposed to just being given. So that part for me, brother, when you came up, that probably was one of because there was a lot of gems dropped on that week. But that was one of the gems that I took from that identity and influence. Where you at? I don't know if you had them built out like I did.
I, I have some of them like that. I got a couple
Okay.
takeaways and everything, but I want to respond a little bit on that
Yeah, go ahead, do your thing.
because yeah, because before we even move to one of my takeaways, and it's just because of like the mastery piece, man. As soon as you said that, even before you got to the word mastery, I knew exactly where you were going. You started talking about being in the gym 13 weeks ago. You decided to focus on health, the why, the longevity, and it's like. you're talking about mastery.
Mm.
And I have a reference in a movie, one of my favorite movies. I love this movie. It's called The Last Samurai. And Tom Cruise is in this movie and he ends up being captured, right? And because the leader of this group of samurais, because he sees a vision of the white tiger, he ends up, instead of killing him in battle, he brings him back. He retains him. And then he eventually allows him to adopt or to adapt to the culture that they have. And one of the things that he says while he's walking around and observing the way that the Japanese are living, he's like, every single person has a single focus and they work on it every day relentlessly. And it's like, this is a very, very powerful statement that he's making because the perfection of what they're doing, the art of it. So when you watch one of these movies and we're just watching a movie and we're seeing the depiction of how they spoke about the culture back in those days, you're just thinking like, wow, they're going overboard. You see the little kids getting tapped on the back or whatever because the way that they use the way that they draw their lines is not accurate enough. But then when you take that and you take a step back and you take this as a reference point, it's like it's because they train on it every single day relentlessly. I don't know. That's the way they do things now. The days of the samurai, and as far as I know, are so far beyond, old days. I'm sure there's still some Ronins out there or whatever. But the whole point is like, how many of us are focusing on one thing to mastery? That so just in you saying that, and the thought process of this, it just developed into something much more for me right now, as I am in the middle of my sincere laser, is what we call it nowadays, laser focus. I've heard this term just like tossed around. I'm so laser focused right now. And it's like, well, what does laser focus really mean? You know, and if you can explain it to me, then by all means, you're laser focused. But it's like, what exactly does that mean? And you have to have a very, very clear vision, right? A
Yeah.
very clear vision. And so it's not just having vision, but it's having clarity in vision. And then you have to pay attention to it to the point where everything else falls out of balance. Woo, that's a heavy one. I heard Myron Golden talking about this when he was talking about balance. And I'm trying to quote this correctly, but he said that I believe it was when you have balance, you don't have focus. I want to say that's how it was. I have to look it up. But when you have focus, you don't have balance. And the idea is because when you look at something singularly without you lose focus on everything else. You get blinders like a horse. You only see what's right in front of you. And so everything else just kind of like goes the way of the world. And you don't have control over those things. Because if you take your eyes off of whatever it is that you're focused on for one moment because you feel like you're losing balance, you've lost focus. And once you've lost focus, you've lost your momentum towards whatever your clear vision is. And you all go look it up in case I'm missing one of the words, misplacing a word, and that could make a huge difference in how the interpretation of the thought is. But the interpretation of the thought that I'm giving you is very accurate to what I'm saying. And I love that because I'm in a stage of mastery right now. And it's not just that I'm in a stage of mastery because I feel like I've entered in and entered out stages of mastery, but it's that a sincere focus on what it is that I'm mastering. And because of that, I needed sincere clarity in my vision. And I had to tweak it down. And that was one of the great things that I got a chance to unravel while I was with Mike the other day as I started telling him some of the plans that I have and some of the challenges that I have and some of the successes that I have. And he heard something and he just picked that up. And when he picked it up, he started to go down this pathway. And it was like, I'm talking with the brother. It's like, I'm not going to stop him, especially not when he's feeding my soul. Right. And so he's sitting there, he's talking, and man, this thing is starting to hurt. Right. But we were, and this is not even the weights. We're still lifting the weights. I'm starting to lift weights, and the weights are heavier than I've lifted before. And I can care less. I'm like in this flow. I'm absorbing this thing. And I'm like, you know what? What I'm hearing is heavier than what I'm lifting.
Mm.
And it was just such a powerful thing that I left wasted. I mean, my body even became wasted. I had to stop my workout like one rep early because I was like, you know what? I just realized something. My body is done. I didn't know my body was done until cramps rose up through my arms and up into my neck and everything. And I was like, Mike, if I do one more thing, you're gonna have to pick me up off of the ground. But I didn't even realize I had gotten there at
Mm.
all. It's like it just hit. I knew that I was somewhere close, but it hit. And I was like, yo, I am beyond fatigued, but my brain was so stimulated by the conversation that I overlooked it and I went beyond what I probably would
Mm.
have normally done. So, mastery. That's what I took away from that right there, Mike. And I definitely want to throw that back in your direction before I give any of my takeaways.
Yeah, and I would just that clarity is big. Getting that crystal clear vision, it helps a lot. That's the heavy. It's a lot of heavy lifting once you get clear and you get a vision. Otherwise, so the proverbial throwing stuff against the wall and hoping anything sticks, right? Um, the mastery becomes when you've mastered something, it becomes effortless, right? If we take it down a notch. So when we're talking about, because I want to jump into the Myron Golden saying when we talk about getting laser focused, because mastery doesn't require laser focus. Because when you've mastered something, it doesn't require it. It happens. It's just happening. So this is that's this, but it's important as we start to look at one thing. Like I said, for me it was this 12 weeks. I had Joe said it before, and I've said it for years. You got to give me 90 days. Give me 90 days, and I'm going to learn. I'm going to at least have that information, right? I'll learn anything. You give me 90 days, I'm gonna master it. That was my thought process with it. And that's really just mastering the information, because then you got to take that information and give it to people, right? Like I may know all this information in regards to this health thing. I've mastered the informational part of it, but then it gets to the emotional part of it where if I have to communicate it with someone else, that's a whole different part of it, right? Like that's another level of the mastery. But you're not always second guessing what you're telling somebody. So oftentimes we do that. We kind of second guess what we're saying because we haven't mastered it. Carter G. Woodson spoke about this in The Miseducation of the Black Man. He spoke about the culture not necessarily mastering something, taking their gifts, right? Most people I know are gifted. God gives everybody gifts. Let me just say that the Most High gives everybody gifts. But to master the gift is the difference between, I always use this saying, Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James. LeBron mastered his gift. Melo was gifted and still is, but he doesn't operate on the same level as someone who actually mastered the gift, right? He took his gift and he did well, and I can't beat Carmelo Anthony in the basketball game, right? But these are two people that came out at the same time. One is still in the league, 40 years old, and operating at a pretty high level. I don't care how you say it. This guy is not a slouch, right? And here's the other person who didn't get any championships, didn't win, and was arguably more gifted,
Hmm.
than LeBron was. right? He was arguably, when he came out of college, he went to Syracuse. I believe they won a championship. This is back in 2003 or four or something. Came into the league. He arguably was a better player, gifted player than LeBron, but LeBron ended up going through the mastery. But you do get to add the balance of it, because and at that, but because it becomes effortlessly, but you have to get to the master level. While you're mastering it, laser focus is great as well, bro. All right,
Mm.
good talk. Go ahead. Where we at with because I think we're still on that first episode.
I mean, gosh, man, that was like, I was about to go into my notes for like the season and surrender
No, no,
because
go ahead. Do your thing.
that's
I'll
where we
jump.
started talking about that mastery.
Okay, I'll jump around. We'll jump however you want to jump. I'm with you. Let's get to it.
Yeah, well, okay. All right. So I'll go on over here to this thing right here.
Where we on
And
season and
you're talking
surrender?
about, I just want, yeah, man, I want to touch on
Okay.
that because I want to keep the, so it's like either we keep the consistency of each episode or we can keep the consistency of the conversation. So I think I'd rather just go with
I'm with you wherever.
conversation.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So
Mastery's big. This is
master's big. Yeah.
especially in the concept of identity, right?
Yeah.
Like being, because we spoke about all this stuff. You guys can still go back and watch these, watch what we spoke about. This is kind of just adding on a different, we're going into a higher level with it, but hopefully already got the basics and the foundation. Go ahead, bro.
All right. So in last week's episode, right, season and surrender, this is something that you had brought up, Mike. You started talking about the seasons, the characteristics of them, etc. Know what to expect, right? And then you're like, life is still going to come at you. And you started talking about the rhythm, the ebbs and the flows. And you broke down this thing of what identity is. And I was just like listening. I'm like, I'm just listening to this thing. And it came down to like these six parts: I feel, I think, I believe, my faith or I faith, I know, I embody. And this is the different levels of maturity that brings about identity, right? And you got to surrender to that maturity or to maturing through these different levels, through these different phases. And you said that thing so sweetly, and I took it, I just succinctly, and I just started just line it up. I was like, that's the I ladder, right? So this is the ladder of I. You want to reach your identity, you need to climb this ladder, right? And that's when we started to think about like this whole inside out thing where practice equals competency
Mm-hmm.
and competency equals confidence. And confidence makes you not ashamed, right? The biblical verse, make not ashamed, right? So then for us to get to a point of mastery, it starts with these other things. First, you need to identify who it is, exactly who what you are. And I took down this one. You all see, I like these, I like acronyms, I guess. But VCFCP, VCFC, VCFCP, right? And it just means vision, clarity, focus, consistent, persistent, consistent persistency. Vision, clarity, focus, consistent persistency. That equals mastery. I'm gonna let you get that. I'm gonna throw it back in your hands.
Go ahead. Okay, so the brother's on the call. So we broke down the identity ladder, and I want to add something if I have the time. If the brother's not busy. All right, perfect. And we'll cut it off shortly. The identity ladder. The brother, what I explained last week, which starts off with the feeling, then it goes to the you think something, you feel something. All right, brother, we'll talk. You feel something, then you think it, then you believe it, Then you have faith in it. Faith this is going to happen. Then the fifth one is you start to know this is happening, which is more powerful than faith. Knowing is more powerful than faith. And then you get to the top where you actually embody this thing. And here's the thing in regards to the identity ladder is that it's the identity ladder is it happens regardless, right? So it's important to understand what your results are. It's important to understand what your what you're showing, how you're showing up, because you have an identity ladder. You may not necessarily want it to be that way, or want people to believe that it's that way, but it is that way. So the first part of this is just really some self-reflection, like what exactly, and this tells you what you actually believe in, what you actually have faith in. We have people who all day long say, I believe that the Most High is going to do, certain things for us or certain things for me. But that actual identity, because you have your facade identity, what you want the world to see, your results are going to show you, so figure out what your results are. That's why for me, the nutrition is just so easy because you can, the scale, and not necessarily the weight, the pounds that you weigh, but mostly like your body fat percentage, blood work. All this stuff is going to show what you're actually about. And you can really look at this exactly like the gym, because there's people who go to the gym or claim that they go to the gym every day and they're working out, or and they just don't understand there's a logical explanation as to why this is the way that it is. And that's the same way in all other parts of your life. There's a logical explanation to why what you physically manifest happens. There's a logical explanation as to why your mentally happens. And out there, spiritually is just spiritually being connected. So there's a logical explanation to know if you're connected or disconnected from, spiritually. This identity ladder, it gives you the framework of figuring out what it is. And then if you're really honest with yourself, like if you go through this, if you're honest with yourself, then you can start to make the changes. But you can't make a change from something that you're not aware of. So if you ever get a chance, if you go back and look at that, it was the seasons and the was it Surrender and Seasons episode. I think that was last week. So go check out that one last week. And then the brother also spoke about the what I like to call it the baseline, right? And a lot of people don't want to know what their baseline is, or they do know it, but they don't stay there because the baseline tends to be boring, and or people get so upset with what their baseline is that they don't want to believe that that's what it is. And the baseline is the way that you are, right? This goes back to your identity. This is how you check identity, is by understanding what your baseline is. And you'll figure out what your baseline is by just, you know, it may take you 12 weeks to figure it out, right? Because you're gonna have to start noting things about yourself. I'll go back to the analogy of going in the gym. If someone were to ask me like, okay, Mike, I want to get healthy, right? Just forget about losing weight. I want to get healthy. What should I do? I would say, well, first you need to figure out where you are. So first you need to figure out, and I wouldn't change anything. I would just figure out where I am. I would say, okay, for the week, first 2 weeks to 3 weeks, all you need to do is track what you eat. Right? If you have the ability, take a blood test. That's going to tell you a lot of information. And after you take the blood test, just track what you eat, because that way you'll know exactly what it is that you need to take away or add. Maybe you're nutrient deficient. That might solve a lot of things. Track what you eat and your activity. Maybe you need to just walk 20 minutes a day. That may change a lot of different things. What we tend to do is we without Mic check. Oh, am I on? Let's see if you can hear me. Mic check. Mic. Nope. Huh. Mic check. Mic check. Hello. Can't. Mic check. I don't know what happened to the camera. I'll try it one last time. If not, I'll just finish my thought and we can end it here. This is interesting. Okay. You can hear me. Let me see if I can get the camera going. Okay, I can't. All right, guys, forgive me. I'm gonna try to finish this just like this. So we really got into the episode. Once again, figure out where your baseline is. I spoke about the fine and not being upset. Like just we have to we get to a point we can just accept what our baseline is. Um one of what the most powerful episode, another powerful episode we had was the presence and power. And so some of the core concepts that we came up with presence and power was your presence is when your spirit, words, and energy stay the same thing, which essentially means you're in alignment, right? Presence is not is alignment. It's not about attention. You're not necessarily looking for attention. You're just aligned with your spirit, your words, and your energy. It all matches. And we can tell the difference. You know, people who know will tell the difference, and people that you don't know the difference that you attract may be of detriment to you. We spoke about how being loud doesn't equal power, right? Sometimes people want to overpower someone by being louder than what they are, but power can easily, and it does, come from silence, stillness, and discernment. You know, the brother spoke earlier about we were in the gym, and he's like, the words were heavier than the weights because we worked to a point of exhaustion, but because of the energy that was being given, right? It was more heavier than weights, and a lot of it. It may seem like I talk a lot here, but I don't really talk a lot in person with people, especially when we get to these conversations, because there's more so of an understanding coming out, which questions need to be had, and I need to be listening. Right? I heard someone just recently say, "Listen and silent have the same letters in them." So, you know, that's a part of it. Two ears and one mouth for a reason. And then we spoke if you have power without presence, that equals control and domination. And then presence without power equals softness with no backbone. Okay. And then we went back into mastery is not about performance, it's an authentic rhythm and it's firm and fluid. Come on, guys. So I have some questions that I'm asking you if you want to answer them that'll help you. It's like when you walk in a room, do you need to be seen or felt? Right? Like think about that. When you're walking into a room, is it more about being seen or is it more about the energy that you're giving off? That way you're fluid with it because there's times when and then here's the thing, it depends who's in the room. This may be a perfect time for you to listen, which speaks volumes of the person that you are, right? And then look at places where you're performative rather than rooted. Do I always have to, am I forcefully leaving an impression, right? This performative part comes from forcing something rather than allowing it to flow through you. And as far as the presence part or the power part, when do I withhold my voice and is it out of discernment or fear? That's something that I've always worked on because I definitely know the Most High speaks through me. And so it came to a point of am I discerning or I'm fearful about a person's reaction? Because if that's the case and I don't say what I need to say, then I'm not really being a good steward of the information that I have or the power that was given to me. Um, I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna end it here. Some things that I'm personally gonna do is start a mastery journal and be more intentional about it because I've mastered a lot of things, but I haven't necessarily been intentional about writing it down or keeping the information and creating the proper frameworks out of it, out of these different things. And that's what I've been doing for the last 12 weeks is creating a framework that it can be easily scalable and be given. So other than that, guys, definitely appreciate you all for checking in. And this is interesting. Everything cut off. I'll see you next week.